We are standing in front of this gorgeous fireplace in the lounge area of our home. And this whole room, obviously, one of its many complicating factors was this fireplace. Had you ever done a fireplace like this one?
No. Leave it to Ben.
So what was fun was that we designed our own custom fireplace here, and we created this very unique profile and shape to it that was very much Art Deco inspired. 3 major component pieces are the 2 posts here and here, and then this one solid marble piece that spans between the 2 of them. And there's actually a little bit of a seam where the post attached to the top. Obviously, it's cleverly disguised within the design of the piece. But yeah, I love the way this turned out.
So
love it.
Talk to me. So I'm standing on your rug.
Yes.
But notice how the rug doesn't go, it doesn't have any
jags.
shape.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You, my friend, were thinking about this very early on.
We were.
Yes. Talk to me.
By code, you have to have 20 inches of non-combustible material in front of the firebox itself. And a lot of times what that means is that the hearth sticks out in front of the actual fireplace mantle by 20 inches.
Which would mean your rug would have to
zigzag around that particular hearth. Well, yes. So what we did here was we actually padded this entire wall out. We brought in the paneling that you can see on the corners, and we pretty much bumped out that entire wall, which then allowed us to create a hearth that sits inside the mantle itself. So you can actually see that the stone starts and extends the necessary 20 inches from the front of the hearth, but we don't have to disrupt the position of the rug.
Yes, so the firebox, which is the first thing to get installed at frame stage, if you look in here, this is the firebox. I mean, okay, this is my arm, right? And this is my arm extending back. I'm touching the firebox. That's how far back this is. Okay?
It really is.
To give you a visual.
Which, by the way, in our climate of Houston, Texas, you don't really need to have a lot of robust heat coming out of your firebox. A lot of times you have it for more decorative reasons. And what's really nice about the fact that we recessed it so far back was not only the benefit of not having to cut the rug around the hearth, but the fact is that you don't have as much heat coming out into the space. So we're standing here right next to it with the fireplace on, and it's really not that hot to sit right next to the fireplace.
That's a good point. Anybody up north, that would be a consideration.
Again, they probably would like to be closer to the firebox if they're relying on it to heat their home. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times these days, your air conditioning systems are so high performing, you don't really need your fireplace for heat. You're not cooking by it. You're not doing anything else. So it's going to be largely decorative.
Yes. And another fun fact about fireplaces, the homes are built really, really tight, really tight, where we don't have a lot of airflow in and out of a home. So in this particular home, we have fresh air coming in that really needs to make its way through the home so that this fire can stay lit. There's a lot of science around it, but that's an important thing to know. Like, make sure this fire will still last when you press the remote control.
It needs to have makeup air so that this fireplace actually draws and the flames are actually going to go up, because otherwise you can actually get a situation where you can smell, like this is a gas fireplace, you'd smell gas in this area because it's not properly drawing.
Yes. So how do we turn this fireplace on? And what were some things that you thought about in advance?
Many of us might have the gas key to turn on, and then they have to sit there with a lighter and reach into the firebox and light it. We wanted to do a remote ignition system. You want to point out? Yeah. So that particular panel lifts off of the wall, and behind it is a remote ignition. And that can be started by pushing a button on our Lutron keypad that says fireplace. And that essentially activates that device, not only turns on the gas, but ignites the fireplace.
So that system, so you'll want to talk to your architect, designer, and builder. That system requires a plumber, an electrician, your lighting controller, AV consultant.
And the installer.
And the installer, that's right. All of these people need to huddle up very early on. The right parts need to be purchased. The placement needs to be assigned. This panel was very well thought out in advance that we would have access to this system inside. So that's a very different concept to think through as opposed to a remote control on-off.
Right. And a lot of times, by the way, this is necessary because this is not one of those TV fireplaces where there's glass in front of it that protects from a lot of the things that we're talking about. Because we wanted an open firebox, all these extra layers needed to be necessary in order to do a remote ignition.
Talk to me about when you designed the mantle.
Yes.
So there's the design phase, and then what sort of details are worked through so that when you say, hey, Erin, I've worked everything out, here you go, install it. Tell me why you set us up so well.
Well, I mean, part of it is just has to do with the drawings and making sure that we've, again, not only was the paneling super considered, but all pieces of the firebox were considered with the mantle and the hearth and all these other pieces. So when we had this fireplace mantle fabricated, they also fabricated the piece for the hearth and these side pieces all the way around to, again, create the seamless transition between the stone on the inside and the firebox that we've recessed further back.
And in those drawings, Ben was very specific about this detail right here.
Yes.
So this piece is a 1/2-inch extension past the mantle legs, and this is completely wrapped inside. So if Ben didn't order or make sure we had 2 sides, a top and a bottom, guess what? I would have said
be incomplete.
And 3 months later, because this is from Spain,
yes.
right? Spain?
Yes, exactly.
We would have had a major problem. So all those details are crazy important.
Crazy important to figure out early on, and just to make sure that, again, all those various contractors and subcontractors that you mentioned that were necessary to pull this off, they all had to be on the same page as to what we were doing.
Yes, and so that's why this looks amazing. And I will admit, we installed this the first time, and I about vomited.
Well,
So-
you remember what it was? It was the gap at the back of
Yes.
the fireplace. So, and somehow it may be a little bit of unlevel. We had to do 2 attempts at this, and I love the way it turned out. I remember you sent me a video after the second one, and you were like, okay, we nailed it this time.
Yes.
And she did.
Second time. Yeah. Sometimes, thankfully, Ben and Eric are very patient, and we had a good conversation, and we can smile now. But the thing is we didn't want to have to install any caulk or filler between the paneling and the mantle.
Not look so good.
Right. And so, again, take 2, we nailed it. You should get a close-up.